alerts and like, do you want to record this? We can send it to you. I'm like, that's so great.
Okay. I am recording.
Okay. Hey, everybody, it's Tyler Skinner here with Women Making Waves. I am honored to be able to sit with Jill Stelfox of Panzura. She's the CEO. And Panzura, for those of you that don't know, is a privately owned company based in the Bay Area. They provide a global filing system for enterprises storing data on the cloud. Jill has a very, very long history in many other capacities, which she will probably share with us today. She also has raised 80 million, returned a billion, and I did say billion with a B, but she's also a mom and a grandma, and she's got all these other things about her that are so wonderful and special. So Jill, thank you for joining me today and agreeing to talk with us a little bit more about what it means to be a woman in the tech industry based on your
Thanks.
experience and your journey. I'm excited to hear about it.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start from, I don't want to say totally the beginning, but kind of the beginning. I like to go back to childhood a little bit because I think that for a lot of girls, that's where a lot of this starts and begins. And it, transcends as we go into teenagehood and then get into young adolescence and all these things. So what, as a girl growing up, did you have this idea or thought? Was there something about school, a mentor, a parent? Was there something that got you saying that this is kind of the path I'm going to take, or did you not even know?
I would say two things. One is I got into Girl Scouts early. And so I was in Girl Scouts my whole life, brownies all the way through. And then my dad was a teacher, and there's three girls in our family. And so he was like, you have to get an education and you have to get a license to do something. And so we always grew up knowing we would have an independent like job or role because of my dad. We didn't know what we would do, but he was like, you have to do something. So I think without that, I don't know that we'd ever end up like we did.
So it was kind of dad. Dad was the big push. See, that's interesting that you bring that up because we find that that's a common thread, actually, that I see a lot in strong women, first of all, is a lot of the times it's the men who help raise them. There's a lot of that support. And there's that idea of you can be a leader and this is how you've got to be. And I can help you get there and teach you and train you and give you some tips on life hacks on how to do that. I think that's really important. That's very valuable. I've seen that a lot in some of these interviews we've done with women saying that it kind of goes back to dad. So that's very interesting that you bring that up. And Girl Scouts. I can't say enough about programs like Girl Scouts. I was in Campfire personally, but it's very similar to Girl Scouts. Yeah. So I can totally relate to that, to those leadership training early on. So that's what you're attributing a lot of your early days in that realm.
Exactly. Yep.
And then going into school and everything, did you kind of take that path? Have you naturally been inclined toward mathematics, science? I mean, I don't know if they had STEM or STEAM or those kind of things. And so I know that's trending now. A lot of people now are using that in school, and it's a big part of our educational system. But having access to that, I think having not a gender bias when it comes to education and having access to those different opportunities.
It's interesting. I didn't really have that much access through school. I was your basic C, B+ student. So I wasn't the top of the class. I wasn't the smartest in the room, but I had an affinity to math and I really liked math. I hated science, like biology, science, hated that, but I loved math. And I was at the advent of computers coming out, and I just found it so fascinating. All my neighbors' dads were like working at in early computers like IBM back in the day, and right. And so it was so fun to see what they were making and doing. And so that was going on like literally on the neighborhood block. You'd go over for a snack after school and somebody's dad would be showing you this newfangled computer. And so it was a benefit, I think, of growing up in the Bay Area. But I think, by the way, my BC education is the perfect education for being a CEO, because you have to be really creative to get to the top of the class and to get the attention and to get what you need done. And you know that you're not the smartest in the room.
You
And
know,
that's okay.
and that's okay. You know what? A lot of people are going to relate to this because not everybody, that's the thing is we assume that everyone has to be the straight A 4.2. Now it's like a 4.5 GPA you have to have to go to
Right?
universities, which is crazy. I'm like, where do they get the 4.5 from? I don't understand. It's A plus plus plus, AP classes all the way. So yeah, I think the BC student, that's interesting you bring that up about the creativity. So what traits did you see in yourself when you say that about attention in the class or getting things done? Can you elaborate on that a little more about your specific traits as a young girl kind of doing this in school and saying, okay, did you kind of say that to yourself? I'm BC average. It's okay. I'm good with that. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Or is there a strategy or is it just you using that creative side?
Well, my dad being a teacher, he was not thrilled that I was an average student. And so he would give me, a hard time, right? I want more, better, all the things that I think sometimes as moms we do to our own kids. But he was all about getting good grades. And so I learned how to negotiate with him when I didn't get good grades. I learned how to cajole him. You learn all these social skills that I think you really need when you become a leader in business. And I also think I became aware of the fact that I could succeed by not being the valedictorian. Like it was okay, even though the pressure is on. When you're 15,
Yeah.
18, 19, and going to college and you don't get, you're not the top of the class. I think sometimes you do go through that self-doubt. And what I would tell my younger self is don't worry about it. You focused on the right things, paying your way through college, cajoling your parents into the
Mhm.
fact that these grades were enough, negotiating with professors to,
Yep.
for projects and things, all the things that you have to do when you're not the valedictorian.
The interpersonal skills. I mean, that's a big thing is like knowing people and knowing how to navigate life, in that way and adapt. And that's kind of sounds like that's what you did. Like, well, I could get extra credit this way. Maybe we'll try this method. Yeah, I think that's great. That's great to know. I had no idea about that. Is that a common thing you see across the board? Because I'm sure you interface a lot with various CEOs in a lot of industries. Do you see that as a common
I
trait?
think, by the way, the bell curve totally exists with CEOs, right? I
Okay.
mean, some are like valedictorian, and you're like, whoa, that guy, or that woman, she's so, so smart. But then there's like all the rest of us right in the middle.
So
I
there's
think
these
there's,
people on the ends.
yes, there's a lot of us in the middle. But I do think people look at that CEO title and think, oh my gosh, for a company that big or having raised so much money, you must be very, very smart. I would say I'm a hustler and I can hustle. I don't take no for an answer. I out execute and I run hard. And I think those are skills you learn when you're not the valedictorian.
Right. Because you're finding a way. I often find that too. I have a lot of friends who have immigrated here, and I've noticed that too. They've had to put things together. It's like MacGyver. When you have to piece
Yes.
things together and figure it out, there's something to be said for that too, that hustle, like you're saying. And I have to try to make my way and find the way that works. And so this adaptability, I mean, this must be amazing for you right now. COVID taught us that 100%. If you're not adapting and you're not willing to go there, you're going to be left behind.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's actually fascinating. It's the first thing, just specific to COVID. It's the first thing that we did is, as soon as the shutdown happened, pulled the whole team together and said, we're in a new world. Like everything you knew a minute ago is done. What can we do now to help our customers be successful in their world? And thank God, by the way, our software, it's cloud-based. It helps employees work at home. So it was perfect for the environment, but it meant that we had to be flexible on terms, flexible in installation, provide more help. I mean, it's literally crazy. And I think that like early ability to, I call it hustle. And I mean that in a good way. It just gives you the ability to make change.
I'm losing you a little bit.
Are you? Yeah,
No,
there it
now
is. Yeah,
I got you
yeah.
back. It's
We're
everyone
back.
on these things at the same time.
I
Yeah.
know.
So you're saying this is I didn't catch the last part of what you said because that got a little bit mixed up.
Yeah. I was talking about how there's a lot of hustle, in how we looked at COVID and how we were able to figure out a way to be there for our customers, but it takes hustle to do it.
And I think that's important too to know that you're not taking, when you say not taking no for an answer, what does that mean for you? Is it finding another way? Is it finding an opportunity, another alternative? Or is it just, because I know I'm sure it's not like, hey, I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
And you're
It's
just putting
interesting.
your hand up. It's more like, is there, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the I don't know, I always wonder if it's a funny quirk in my head, but when I hear no, 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 we don't give venture capital money to women. No, we don't have women running cloud companies. No, we don't have. I hear no, and I just like, I get this like evil laugh in my head, like, whoa. And I think, oh, good, because I'm going to do it more, better, faster, all the things. I'm going to prove you wrong. So to me, it's like instant competition. When I hear no, I think, oh, I have to do better, explain myself more, not no, like stop. I don't hear that
Yeah.
part. There's no
It's just
stopping.
do it differently. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do it
just
differently.
rethink it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's touch on that a little bit, what you said for women. When you're hearing things like we don't have women running cloud companies or we don't have give venture capital women, where do you think that comes from? That's where I'd like to dig in a little bit is where does that come from to say something like that, a statement like that?
Well, first of all, I think it's not cool. But I think it's fascinating that people feel like they can, which which I think says a lot to where we're at with women in the workforce. That's just unfortunate. I had hoped that by the time I got to where I am today, my daughter wouldn't have to go through the same things. And that's just not true. She's still dealing with it at 29. So I think that there's a weird thing about men that think that they can say these things. Um, I also think that it's maybe just basic competition where they think they underestimate their opponent, and any way that they can underestimate you is better in how they think about winning. Um, the bad news is, as women, I think sometimes when people underestimate us, we play this little record in our head that says, oh, maybe that's true. Maybe what they're saying is right. Maybe I'm not good enough or whatever enough. And I would argue with you that that's a bunch of BS, that that's not true at all.
Exactly.
That, yeah, that, by the way, none of us, talk about imposter syndrome. Do any of us really know what we're doing? Probably not. Um, but we figure it out really, really well. And I would argue that women figure it out even better in that we've got all these plates we're juggling, right? We raise our families, we pay our bills, we get our job done like, oh my God, to the best. Our
Exactly.
customers love us, our employees and our colleagues love us. Like we do all the plate spinning. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we're really, really good at it. But for some reason, we have this gene where we wonder if we really are. And what I would wish for, especially younger women, is that they would just get comfortable sooner and don't worry about it.
Sooner. Exactly. Go start
Just,
sooner. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier about your dad. I mean, there's
yeah.
some of that too, is just if men can feel comfortable enough in themselves to be able to say, they're raising daughters and sons, but they're also
Mhm.
raising daughters, a lot of men in the world. And so looking at that and saying, hey, I've got this girl that has these abilities or this talent or something I see in her, and raising them as such, and like really highlighting that and helping them see that path, so that, I think that's part of it too, is that balance between men and women. And I think that's more where it'd be great to see that happening more often and sooner. You touched on another thing I want to bring up is women kind of the imposter syndrome, but leaving. I think some of that has to do
Mm,
with this decision that we just discussed earlier, was leaving the workforce. When they're saying, I'm not enough and I can't do this and this is too hard, it's because they feel like they've been backed in a corner and they've been forced to make a choice that's really challenging. So, how, because you are a mom and you are a grandma, so work life balance. I mean, that's one of the things that we brought up a lot with women in tech, especially, is that there's all kinds of things out there like Tech Mom Collective and groups that support women in these positions, so that not only as they get into entry level, but then they stay there. Even if they want to get married and have kids and do all the things, they stay and they keep moving up and keep being able to have the benefits of that without feeling like I have to make a choice.
that's right. I think it's a two-party conversation, which is why this is hard. One is you as the individual going through all this, you need to have peers so that you know that you're not the only one. At Panzura, we have a Panzura women's group, and we got together for the first time a month or 6 weeks into COVID, and we all cried. There was 40 of us on a Zoom call, and we were all just crying because we're like, we're so tired, and the plate spinning is so much, and it's like really overwhelming, right? And then we never cried again because we're like, we're fierce now, like we're a fierce group of women, and we can do this. And you can understand that there's other people out there really struggling too. And somehow there's peace in that, which is a weird thing, but it's true. So that's one part of it. The other side is the company side. The one thing that's awesome about me being a female and running a really large company is that I think females feel like they can come and say what they need, but often we don't. And companies have to listen to what females need right now. And what females need today in this COVID environment is very different than 2 years ago. Maybe we did need it then, but now we really do need flexible time. We
Mm-hmm.
need the ability in the middle of a Zoom call to be like, I have to go off camera and scream at my children for 1 second. Can you
Give
just
me a second.
just 1 second? Right?
Yeah.
Like the puppy that has to go to the bathroom, the cat that comes across, like all of that has to
It's
be with
life.
no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the funnest parts or most fun parts about COVID is that's all happened to men too, right? Where they've had to yell at the kids and they've
Yes.
had to do all that. So it's kind of fun seeing both sides. But um, companies need to be really focused on keeping women and not listening to what they need, because often we don't speak up, but asking and providing, you know, give them time off in the middle of the day to fix lunch. It's fine. Like, I don't know anybody in my company that's working less during COVID. They're working more.
Absolutely.
And
We're more accessible now because
yeah,
there's not that, well, not that even the 9 to 5 wasn't there, but we're more accessible at other hours because we can say, okay, we can talk at 7 p.m. and get on another call, versus that would normally be dinner time, right? Or we wouldn't do that.
yeah,
We wouldn't have a phone call then or be at work. So this
yep.
is, yeah, that you're right. There is that flexibility piece and the grace. I think the thing you're talking about is grace, having grace for others, for yourself, not being afraid to be silly or to
Mhm.
have things show up on the screen, because we're all in everybody's living rooms. We're tuning into
Yep.
everyone's personal life every day
Yep.
and what's happening. So that's great. And are you seeing companies giving that a little more, like to women especially, or not?
Yeah, it's interesting because I want to say yes to that, but based on the numbers, they're just so shocking. The number of women dropping out of the workforce because they feel like they have to. They feel
Yeah.
like they're choosing between their job or educating their, fifth grader. And I it's just heartbreaking to see, because here's what I know for a fact. The reason that I've been so successful and been able to do now 4 amazing technology companies and return so much money to investors is because there's diversity around the table.
There you go.
And women bring different qualities, different ways of thinking about things and solving problems in unique and different ways. And it is so valuable to organizations. It makes me so sad that women are having to make these choices. And then I also think they're getting laid off at a higher proportion, because that's just what happens.
True.
Which is again, a bunch of BS, to use a very technical term. And
Yeah.
so I think that, we have to be very conscious as, leaders in companies. We have to be really conscious about who's on a layoff list and who's not. I mean, thankfully at Panzura, all we do is hire people. We don't lay people off, but like other companies that had to because of COVID, just pay attention to the who. Because if you end up with one single group of people left, you won't have diversity around the table, which means you won't have different ideas. And that's going to be a challenge for making money when this all comes back.
It's the who, not the what. It's not the bottom line. It's not always the what you're doing, and it's who's around the table. I totally agree. And I speaking to that, you have worked in a previous capacity. You worked with the NFL. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that, I imagine, is an environment mostly made up of men. I'm only guessing, but I think that's I'm pretty accurate in saying that. And so you being this only female, as we're talking about diversity around the table, how was that feeling of being pretty much I'm the only gal here, like trying to figure this stuff out? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I worked with the NFL for 5 seasons and put in the technology called NEXTGenStats. So if you watch a football game today and you see lines and speed and names on the television screen, that was all technology that my team and I put in for the NFL. So when we started the project, I got a lot of razzing, I would say, about, oh, how do you know football? Do you really know the game? You don't know the game. Well, I was a lifelong soccer player, played soccer competitively through my late 20s. And so I had a lot of sports experience. And then I marry the most wonderful man ever who loves football. So guess what? I know a lot about football. And so working with the NFL, they were so kind and so wonderful to me, which I don't think people would expect, but they were always the first to push me. Owners of teams, people at the league office would push me up on the stage to talk about this and to carry this whole thing forward, and to lead the conversation about all the sticky issues around player tracking and what it all meant, and the privacy and security. And it was amazing how many enlightened men just pushed me forward day after day after day in the NFL.
That's incredible. Yeah. And that speaks volumes to what they were able to accomplish by doing that, because they're giving you that space, right? They're holding that space for you and saying like, no, it's not, we're not taking all the glory. This is Jill's baby, and Jill's got this. And I can see behind you with this collection you have of helmets and footballs and all kinds of things that you made quite an impression on all of them at the NFL. And you've walked away with some incredible memorabilia that I think is probably on eBay would be worth a handsome sum.
Yeah, it was actually one of the most fun parts is collecting all that through people that I got to know, and would tease them about, could they figure out whether there's an RFID tag in this football or not in this football? And all of those were some kind of bet or funny story about them, which is the thing I love about it, is it brings back great memories.
And you have that to prove it now. Like, they never found one. They're all in my office.
Exactly.
That's so great. So it sounds like you had a great upbringing. You have some good experiences along the way. And then I know what's important to you, as I can gather, is that have women learn this early on. So what's something that are we doing enough? What can we be doing out there to be helping with that process? Because not every girl or woman is going to have the same trajectory or the same experiences that you have, obviously. But what are some of the things that we might be missing, or things that we can address or pay attention to as we're moving on with platforms like this, like Women Making Waves, or having dialogues and conversations around it? What's important?
So I guess my thought now, based on the COVID world we live in, is do pick one person and help them deeply, rather than, sometimes we just don't have time, right? We're going back to the plate spinning. We're doing all the things. So doing another thing, a bunch of things, is too much. But especially if you're a woman in tech, there are so many businesses that need our help, woman-owned businesses, boutiques, wonderful stores in our downtown areas that need help, as an example. Help them go online, help them understand Google AdWords. Even if you don't know how to do that, because you're in tech, you'll learn it quicker than someone that doesn't know how to do tech at all, right? And so pick one person and adopt them. And it's funny, I did that in my town, and it has literally brought me the most joy ever, and a deeper understanding of the pain and challenges that COVID has brought on for small businesses, that I'm deeply grateful for having done it. And I mean, I also work a million hours and take care of kids and family and dogs and all of it. And still carving out just 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week to help one person is so, so, so meaningful right now, to help them get back up on their feet. So I would encourage people to try and find someone to help. And the way to do that, by the way, is walk in your favorite store, favorite restaurant, favorite something that got hit during COVID, and be like, hey, you don't know me, but I want to help you.
Exactly. Exactly, because you have a skill set that they need. And you're reminding me a lot of, as we started this journey with Women Making Waves, one of the first things I ever posted on Instagram was a Melinda Gates quote. And it said, women investing in women are investing in the people that invest in everyone
Mm-hmm. That's
else.
right.
Like, women are just naturally, they think of others. And so, like what you were saying, so they're going to say, how can I help my family, my community, myself, my sisters, my colleagues? Like, they're going to look around at the whole picture, the 360, not just saying it's all me, it's all this, it's all my journey, and that's it. I'm sure there's some women out there that do that. I'm not saying that all of them do, but I generally see that as a thing. So when you're describing this, go into your favorite store, do one thing, one small step that you can do based on the skills you have, what you can offer them, and just ask. It's surprising what comes out of it.
It is surprising.
Life changing.
It is life changing. It literally brings you such joy that I did not expect. I mean, I thought I'll help them. And in the end, they brought me such joy during COVID that I don't know how I would have made it without them. The family got bigger, which is cool. So
that is incredible. And that's community building at its finest right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no magic recipe to it other than walking up to someone and saying, hi, this is what I have to offer. And would you like that? And can I help you? And what do you need? And listening to them and really figuring that out together. There really isn't much more than that. It's amazing.
No, there's not. It's that simple. It's just that simple.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure for me to learn more. And I'm excited to see where else you're going with things, because I'm sure this is obviously not the end for you, and you always have something going on that's amazing. So we cannot wait to continue to follow that along. We'll let our viewers know and people on the platform know where to find you, if you're open to that, to reach out on LinkedIn and find Jill and say hi.
Yep. That would be great.
We got to get to know each other. And I think that's the other thing I've learned in COVID, is that everyone's open. If you're open to that, to those connections, amazing things come out of it that you weren't expecting.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Thanks for having me today. It's been
Jill, this
super
has been
fun.
amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing that with us. I love getting a little peek into your journey. So we really appreciate that. And is there anything else you want to leave us with before we sign off?
Uh, no, thank you for having me. And it's been really fun. If I can bring just a little encouragement, that would be great.
I think you've done more than that, but we really appreciate even the littlest bit.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jill.